teach if you can teach yourself? Reflections. Who you gonna reach if you can reach yourself? Reflections. Who you gonna see if you can see yourself? Reflections. Who you gonna be if you can be yourself?
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Village Voices podcast. I'm your host, DJ, and this is a very, very special one that comes from deep within, and it has a lot of reflection within this episode. Firstly, I would like to say Happy New Year to everyone. Happy 2026. I hope in addition to all the plans that you would be making, that you included some travel and exploration to see this big global village that we live in. So as I was doing my plan for this upcoming year, especially going into Q1, I couldn't help but just feel a bit of emotions when it came to the reflection of last year. I would have started my 2025 January in Thailand, and in this January 2026, I'm in Qatar. And as I was looking back at the last 12 months, one of the plans that I had for Q4 of the year was to begin Q4 in another country. Now, this plan would have developed way later on in the year, but it actually took fruition from around April. I just wanted to give some insights into how my last 12 months would have gone, how I would have gone from living in Thailand in January 2025, ending the year in Qatar and beginning this new 2026 year in Qatar as well. I remember coming back from Trinidad last year in January, and something felt different about my time living abroad in Thailand. I've been living abroad now for the last 7 years. This November would make it 8 years. And within that time, I've lived in 4 different countries, beginning from Vietnam, then Cambodia, then Thailand, and now I'm in Qatar. Now, this was not an easy journey or transition between all 3 countries. There was highs, there was lows, and then there was redemptions. That's how I view it all. And then the year in Qatar was different. In January around this time, Thailand felt different, and I was starting to feel like if not I was outgrowing Thailand, but I was just feeling too comfortable. I have been teaching abroad since I would have arrived in Asia, and primarily that was just to travel the world. I've been teaching for the last 7 years across these 4 countries, and I remember I was in my job at that time in Thailand, and I just was not seeing any room for growth. And personally, I did not want to go up in that organization. So it comes a time of the teaching year, which is normally around April, where they ask for your intent to return. Basically, you're coming back next year or not. They try to do that in advance because that gives them a lot of time to do employment for new staff if you decide that you don't want to come back. And I remember that time was coming up, and it was one of those periods that was very pivotal for my time in Thailand. It was so pivotal because I was starting to feel stagnant. And don't get me wrong, I love Thailand. I love Chiang Mai specifically. I specifically chose to live in Chiang Mai versus Bangkok. I've been accustomed to big cities in every other country that I lived in, and something about Chiang Mai just resonated with me. It helped me a lot with my healing journey, mentally, personally. And Thailand was just feeling like home. It reminded me of Trinidad. It reminded me of the Caribbean feel. It reminded me of what it feels to be in Asia, what it feels to be in a very beautiful culture. There was so much things about Chiang Mai that just brought peace. But something on the inside of me was feeling very uneasy. I was starting to not feel like I want to continue in the job that I was at. I was starting to feel like there's more. What's next? I need something more. And that was around the best time to state your intent. So I remember around this time, it was one of the first times in my life where I almost felt like my confidence dropped. It was a very weird way to think about it and to experience it, because usually I'm a very decisive person. I'm very easy with making decisions. I'm very easy with saying yes or no. During that time, I was thinking, man, I really love living in Thailand here, but now I feel like there's something more. I feel like what I came to Thailand to do, it was almost being accomplished. And if I decided to stay in Thailand, it would literally be me accepting comfortability, to feel like I'm just getting into this comfortable life. Because that's the thing about Thailand. Thailand has this way where Once you get involved, it gives you this type of comfort. If you don't get lost in the sauce, because real people just go to Thailand and get lost in the sauce. But you see, if you come to Thailand with a specific purpose or a specific goal in mind, it gives you this way of getting it done, especially in Chiang Mai. For those of you who've never been to Chiang Mai before, I would definitely recommend, if you're going to Thailand, that should be number one on your list, especially if you crave peace and mental stability and just working on your mental. It's the best place to go and get what you need to get. And I felt like within the 2 years in Thailand, I was getting back this mental capability. I was able to recover and heal from a lot of the things that would have happened. So all these things are happening at the same time. And I'm just thinking, all right, I know I'm no longer feeling fulfilled in my job. I know I'm feeling very fulfilled in Thailand. So if I stay another year with this job, then I'm just doing it because I want to stay in Chiang Mai. I want to stay in Thailand. And that was never my nature of just being so comfortable that I say, okay, this is where I want to stay and this is what I want to do, especially knowing I have my goal and purpose for working abroad, living abroad. There's a goal in mind. And around this time, I was starting to almost feel I love living here so much, but if I sign another contract with this job, then I'm just accepting that I just want to be in Chiang Mai, but I'm still not feeling fulfilled. So it took a lot of debatings back and forth. I did have opportunities in Vietnam at this time, and I started exploring them. So there's a possibility that I could go back to Vietnam. Let me now decide to weigh my options. This was a very pivotal point. Before I got to weighing my options, I was still in this doubt. I was still in this feeling like I'm not being able to make a decision. What's going on? There was a lot of self-doubt. And I remember there was one pivotal moment where I'm not feeling calm. I'm feeling very anxious. I'm feeling very nervous. I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. I was in my apartment, walking past my bathroom, and there's a mirror, and something just hit me. This was one of the reality checks that I had to remind myself. And I said, are you forgetting who you are, bro? You've been so decisive within the last 7 years, being able to navigate across 3 countries while working, while figuring it out. Why am I feeling this doubt now? Why am I not trusting my gut, not trusting my instincts, not trusting my confidence? And I remember looking in the mirror. What really made the change for me was just me basically just surrendering to God. I remember looking up and I was like, you know what? We have this relationship. If you really tell me that you would guide my footsteps and you would guide me, and what I worrying for? I went to my workplace the next day and I said, yo, I am not coming, I'm signing. Just like, where you gonna go? What you gonna do? I was like, to be honest, I don't know. I will figure it out. Now, when I made this decision, it came with a lot of conditions. At this point is I'm walking by faith and not by sight, but I'm not being delusional. I'm not thinking that this just gonna fall into play or whatever. I still had to take action. I said, you know what? Vietnam is an option, but let me start to look outside of Vietnam. Let me start to look outside of Asia. For those of you who are not aware, when it comes to teaching abroad could pay very, very well, especially if you have a lifestyle that you could really maintain. Southeast Asia is a very cheap place. Now, obviously with cost of living and inflation and these types of things fluctuates throughout the time, but in my opinion, Vietnam is one of the cheapest countries to live in where you get high salaries. Vietnam is like that whole mecca of having a cake and eating it too. I could have low cost of living, but I could also get a high salary. Cambodia is more expensive than Vietnam. The salaries are way lower and the cost of living is higher. So in there, you could live a comfortable life too. Don't get me wrong. You could live a comfortable life in every 3 countries. Thailand is a real interesting one. Thailand, you could get wherever you or however you want Thailand to be for you. Thailand could be either expensive or it could be cheap for you depending on how you live. And the salaries is in between Cambodia and Vietnam. So in terms of salaries and being able to live, Vietnam is your choice. Now, there's the mecca countries of teaching, and those places are China and the Middle East. In China and the Middle East, compared to all them other countries that I just called, you're making bank. And the packages that come along with it too, it's unreal. But that is me living in Qatar now working. I figured this out then. But even from research from before, this is just the mecca for teaching. Is either Middle East or in China. I said, all right, I'm going to try to aim for China or the Middle East. If not, I'm going back to Vietnam. But in the event of all these things, I still need to get insurance. So the insurance for me was, if all these things don't work out, I might at least get a next job in Thailand. And if I had to do another year in Thailand, I only gonna do one more year. That was the plan to self. I only will do one more year in Thailand if I have to stay in Thailand or if I choose to stay in Thailand. But after that, that is it. It's time to move on. So I had three options. One was sure, which was Vietnam. Now, the thing with Vietnam was I haven't been back to Vietnam now for about 3 years. So the plan was to go back to Vietnam, just see the vibes, and I sure I love it, and I'd just move back there. In a very quick space of time, I was able to secure a next job in Thailand. It was real easy. So I already had the insurance put in place. I knew to self, all right, I have this put in place. Now let me really try to expand my search and let me see what could go. So I started applying. Then I got a hit. Now, the first hit I got was from a job in Qatar. And I remember this was a real interesting one because they scheduled the interview for a Sunday, which I find was real weird, because I've never done an interview on the weekend before. And only come to find out now that in Qatar, the work week is from Sunday to Thursday. So Friday and Saturday is your weekends, the beginning of the week. Our work week is on Sunday. Now, living in Thailand, I used to do real things. I was working at my school. I used to DJ. I used to do all kind of tutoring. I was doing a real bunch of things, but DJing was the main thing that I would do on our weekend. So Friday, Saturday, and even Sunday, I DJ. This interview was scheduled for Sunday morning at 9 a.m. That weekend was a real busy weekend. That weekend I was booked out actually. So Friday, DJing, finishing all after 2, 3 in the morning. Saturday, same thing, finishing 2, 3 in the morning. So I remember waking up Sunday, literally 10 minutes before this interview started. Now, obviously, I disheveled, to say the least. Waking up with this jump like, yo, interview, let me go, thing. So I went and just washed my face, but keep in mind, feeling disheveled. Your boy done. And I get into the people interview online and I just see in myself in this interview and I just saying, boy, if I could see that I feeling I'm disheveled, these people could definitely see that I disheveled too. And I there and I just going through the emotions of the interview. Can't catch myself, but I going through the emotions. I saying, all right, one step after the other. Now, if there's one thing about me, I could tell instantly now. Once I know I didn't make it at interview stage, I know the job was mine. Let me just put it like that. But I also know too, when I do an interview, you don't just know. I just had this feeling if I just get it or not. And boy, after that interview, I remember coming off and I just remember telling myself, you ain't get that job, boy. I know what I was seeing. I know what them was seeing. I know what I was feeling. Them probably could have seen what I was feeling too. I really couldn't wing it. I know I wasn't getting that job. So as said, as done. I ain't get no call back. So I say, all right, no scene. I was a little down because I really let that opportunity pass. I couldn't be hard on myself because remember, I already had a plan in motion. My plan was Vietnam, if not Vietnam, Thailand, and I would do one more year. Coming up to around July now, my birthday was coming up. And maybe like 4 or 5 days before my birthday, I just get this email, interview, another company in Qatar. I say, all right, cool. But I remember telling myself that when I get an opportunity, I say, if there's one thing I'll never do, is repeat the same mistakes twice. And this interview was confirmed for my birthday, July the 11th. I say, nah, I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. I say, I go in and get that job. I say, I'm not going to go through that no more. And it was a Friday, July the 11th. I was leaving the Saturday to go to Indonesia. During that week, as a man just do my research. I just look up the company, look up the vibes in Qatar, see how the living is, just get to know the place that I could potentially be going to and just kind of get an understanding of what life could be like over here. And the day of my birthday, all my friends messaging me, yo, DJ, what we doing? Let me know is the scene. And I remember just telling everybody, I say, yo, I have something to do at 7 p.m. The interview was for 7 p.m. any night. I don't know what I doing until after that. Let me get through with this. And then we go see where he see. Interview come, go in the interview, prepped, ready, bam. Interview done. And I just get the vibe. Ways I feel good about this interview. Next day, went to Indonesia. So this the 11th is my birthday. Went to Indonesia the Saturday. That was the 12th, 13th, Sunday, 14th. I in Indonesia. Boom, get email. A letter. Why? I ain't gonna lie, I didn't know how to feel that time. Now, I in this real beautiful boutique hotel in Indonesia. Proper bungalow vibes. On this proper island. I was in Bali at that point in time. And I just started to feel like all the blessings, but everything just rained down. You know, I call my moms, I call my sister, I call my brother. I was like, yo, different scene. I watched that offer letter. You know, after going through the motions for all them different countries, this was not an easy journey to even get to Thailand. So reaching to Thailand and now seeing an offer I never saw before in this industry, it was very, very emotional. I can't lie. You know, the terms of the contract, the benefits of the contract and everything. I was very pleased. That just went into this whole 2 week holiday in Indonesia just on a high, hopping around islands. I was just really thankful and happy. So came back to Thailand with 2 weeks to before I leave. Told the job that I would have gotten in Thailand that, yeah, you know, I wouldn't be coming, which was all good and fine. So I spent the next 2 weeks in Thailand in a very reflective, introspective space. I decided to stay in Chiang Mai, and for who know me know when it comes to traveling, my foot hot. So I always like to be traveling. But because I know Chiang Mai was coming to close, or this time in Southeast Asia was going to close, there was so much chapters going to be closed. It was a really emotional time. Spent a lot of time really going all over Chiang Mai to places that I would have never go in 2 years. Thailand gave me so much, man. Like I have nothing but good things to say about not just being in Thailand, but living in Thailand, exploring the countless islands, the countless locations, the wildest of the wildest nights to the calmest of the calmest days. It was just a very beautiful place to live. Again, I would highly recommend Thailand if you're looking for a place just to get a different feel of life. So spend those last 2 weeks just reminiscing and preparing myself. Before I left, we did a very nice farewell party and I DJ'd my last set in Thailand. All my close friends, and it was just such a nice time. I was selling off all this stuff in my place and just preparing myself to get out. And yeah, then I moved to Qatar, and you know, here I am right now. The process was not an easy process to settle into Qatar, and this is something that I will go on to speak about in the next episode. Coming over to Qatar, first thoughts about Qatar, process of being able to live in Qatar, and then, you know, how has life been for the last 5 months. But during this whole reflection time, I would have gone through so many things in 2025. I was feeling this self-doubt. I would have finally felt this calm feeling. And that is one thing that I have to attest to, being able to just maneuver through all these thoughts, plans, and ideas at this point in time after deciding I'm not going to be taking this position. It was my first time where I actually felt calm for the first time in my life. From April all the way up to now, been a lot of mental feelings adjusting to Doha. Don't get me wrong, this has not been an easy transition. To be honest, it's been the most difficult transition coming into a country that I've ever felt. It's so different. Southeast Asia is its own different thing. The Middle East is a whole other piece of pie. But from that April last year, it was the first time that I ever felt this calming spirit where I feel like I wouldn't have to worry, or I didn't have to worry, or I didn't have to wonder. I just felt so calm that everything just fell into place. And, you know, I think that's the message that I want to leave you guys with in this episode, is just the things that you could do once you have a calm mind and you really just set yourself down and say, you know what, I'm going to go through all of this. The steps that I would have taken from this point was being able to surrender to God firstly, being able to make a decision or decide that, you know, I'm ready to stir up the pot again. Then go into feeling this calm peace and having the insurance to make sure that I could then go out and make these opportunities happen. Having opportunities there, then fumbling a very major opportunity, and then getting that redemption period, and then showing myself that yes, I could redeem myself from that failure and then come back to now getting this move made. You know, 4 countries in what will be 8 years this year is not an easy thing. You really had to be brave, you had to be strong, you had to be resilient, you had to have focus, you had to be financially savvy. There's a lot of things that you need to put into perspective when you're deciding to move abroad. If moving abroad is something that you want to do or you want to achieve, you really had to put your mind to it. And you really had to start with doing your research, you know. As I start going along with memories, these stories, these life lessons, I'm going to be giving you all this information that would have brought me to this point so you could one day do it too. Thank you, everyone, for signing in to this episode of the Village Voices podcast. This was a real reflective one, a very emotional one, to say the least, because I was feeling all these emotions as I was talking about it. I remember how all of those felt. I really just want to inspire you all to make whatever jumps all you had to make. Everybody does always say this year, this year, this year, this year. If you know you're in this position that you really want to make a change in your life, you just had to put your mind to it and you could get it done. In the upcoming episodes, I'm going to be sharing life now in Qatar, and I'm going to go all the way back to the journey from Vietnam and bring you guys through every step of the way, every success, all the failures, all the mess ups, all the hitting your ground on the head, but also the redemption. And the redemption is the most important part of all of this journey because it just really shows what resilience could produce.
Who you gonna teach if you can teach yourself? Reflections. Who you gonna reach if you can reach yourself? Reflections. Who you gonna see if you can see yourself? Reflections. Who you gonna be if you can be yourself?